Hi, Whitney.
Hi.
You're my special guest tonight.
Oh, neat.
You were hired as my road manager, and now you're sitting in the interview chair.
Yeah. Surprise.
Whitney and I have been friends since like 2001.
Around there, yeah.
And I know a lot of you guys in the house know her and are friends with her and have either gotten massages from her because she's a professional body worker, or you've seen her band, Midtown Social, who are amazing. And when I first, when I first met Whitney, she was dating my housemate, who's still my housemate back in Boston, Steve Martin. Mm-hmm. Not Steve Martin, the actor. The other Steve Martin. Mm-hmm. And we met, and I was like, holy shit, you're this amazing person. And then within a couple weeks, she was like, bye, I'm moving to San Francisco. And I was like, my potential friend. And then we actually did that incredible human thing of, despite the fact that there was always 3,000 miles between us and I was traveling and my band became big and everything, we actually made a concerted effort to be friends with each other.
Yeah. No small feat with this one on the road constantly. And I'm not exactly the easiest person to get hold of either. So, yeah, but here we are.
And part of just cementing that friendship was in the early days of the Dresden Dolls, I think in like 2005, I asked Whitney if she would come on the road with us and sell merch. Mm-hmm. And 2004. 2004, not only because we needed someone reliable that we liked and trusted to sell the merchandise on the road, but because when you live on the road as a touring rock star, you're 5 or 7 or 10
12 of us
or 12 touring companions are your family. And you better fucking choose them wisely, because these are the people that you're going to be seeing every morning until the time you go to sleep at night for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks.
And weeks.
And then Whitney started her massage business and now lives in Oakland, and I stay with her when I'm in town, and we've become really good friends, and our family overlaps, and Whitney has also seen and knows Zoe and knows a lot of my friends in the area, and we've been through a lot of shit together, even though we aren't always physically in the same place.
Yeah, you came and visited me when I was down with my knee surgery and massaged my feet when I couldn't walk. It was really sweet. Yeah.
And Whitney and I interestingly have a lot in common, and sometimes I look at Whitney. You're enjoying the Play-Doh, I see.
I have a fidget toy. It helps a lot.
Whitney and I are really similar, and what's funny is that a lot of the things that I was going to talk to Zoe about tonight are the same topics that I can actually easily cover with Whitney. Even though Whitney isn't primarily a professional musician, she is a musician. She's a great singer, as you just saw. But she's also maybe even more than Zoe. She's an insane connector. She's like the glue of her community, to the point where sometimes it's even a pain in the ass. And Whitney and I, over our course of working together and always talking together and always catching up, have talked a lot about the pros and cons of asking and being asked. And I had a section in my book which I edited out when I edited out a lot of stuff, because a lot of stuff hit the cutting room floor. But I had a whole long anecdote about Whitney and her own crowdfunding of her knee surgery in the book. And will you tell it?
Well, I got kicked in the knee, and my lower leg bent out 20 degrees laterally and blew out most of the ligaments, and I had to have reconstructive surgery and relearn how to walk. And I didn't have health insurance because I'm a body worker. And between an online fundraising site and throwing a couple parties and this wonderful woman helping to broadcast those things, I raised nearly $20,000, which covered 2/3 of the cost of all of the surgery and physical therapy and everything. And community love and teenagers in the Midwest giving me like $3 because of Amanda, and people I've known since second grade dropping like $1,000 on me, and they haven't seen me since high school, and tears and overwhelming love. And also 2 years later, people still saying me in the street and being like, "You're not doing anything dangerous, right? Because I paid for that knee." For real, like people who I'd never met before who would come up to me if they saw me like dancing or rock climbing or doing the things that were the reason I wanted to have knees again. Thinking they had the right to tell me like how to use my body now because they had dropped $20 at a fundraiser.
Right, and that's sort of like, I didn't see the connection until now, but that's sort of the flip side of the passage that I read about Kim. And I'm sure Kim also sees the flip side of like everything's wonderful and everyone supports her and it's all fantastic. There is often a flip side. And with crowdfunding and these crazy new internet tools that allow you to not only tap random strangers who are feeling generous, but mostly tap your community, like the people who who understand you, your situation, your life, your need, your goodness, whatever it is, and are like, absolutely, I trust you. And of course, if you need this, I'll give you $20 or $200 or whatever towards this thing that you need, and let's not even talk about like why the American healthcare system is completely fucked and these things need to exist in the first place.
No. Getting your healthcare needs met shouldn't be a popularity contest. It just shouldn't.
Yeah, exactly. But there is the flip side of, and a huge theme in my book is like if I ask for this thing, I'm going to be beholden to this person. It's going to become, like a stamp collecting game where like I have this and now you have to do this for me, and so many of the things that I see really genuinely working, like really working, where everyone is happy, is where there isn't a whole lot of expectation, and there isn't a whole lot of, but I did this and so you have to, and it really is given as a gift. And not, not as conditional generosity with a price. And it's only looking back on my life where I realized so many things that I was given had so many strings attached. Whether it was love from this place or education from this place or help from over here. And we live in fear of that, right? I mean, we live in fear that like offering our help is going to have a price, or taking help is going to have a price. And I think that that's one of the things that keeps us really trapped.
I feel really fortunate that the family I was raised in has a strong principle of generosity, and I don't really like the term altruism. I feel like it doesn't really exist. Even if you're doing things without expecting return, you get that inner return. And I was raised with this sense of that, of like, going out and getting to do for people is what's going to kind of give you that high in life. And so I have a natural tendency towards it, and I don't think about it, and I think I get so much in return because I already do that, because I get my jollies off of making strangers smile in the grocery store, Totally. Not literally, that's creepy, but you get what I mean.
Not in a rapey way.
And then when it came to that time that I really needed everybody, and I don't know what my life would be like now. It's scary to think about. I don't know if I would be walking. I don't know if I would have, grands and grands of medical debt. I don't know what work I would be doing, because I got to go back to my job that I'd been doing for now a decade. And I just don't know what my life would look like if I hadn't had that. And I see other people who fall into similar situations, and they make the call out and they don't get nearly the response, and it breaks my heart. And I wish there's some way I could, I try to help funnel towards things. It's hard.
It is, it's kind of scary and it's kind of weird. And I write about this in the book, watching, the weirdness of, crowdfunding a record is one thing. It's like, okay, I'm me, I have X amount of fans, like Sam Buckingham over here, she has X amount of fans. That's kind of an artistic, an artistic difference, or but when it comes to survival. Me making an album or not making an album, or making a video or not making a video, it's not actually really a big deal. But when it comes to, I'm crowdfunding my cancer surgery because if I can't pay for it, I'm going to die, is really frightening when you look at how social media status, and like social equity turns into like a matter of life and death. It's almost like, and I wish Zoe was here because this would be like the perfect three-way conversation. Zoe has been chronicling her battles with the American healthcare system. Infuriated, trying to get, her husband, who was given the cancer death sentence, as she is just like shuffled and deleted from the system, and trying desperately to just get him the care that he needs. And she wrote a post and Zoe's a pretty calm person. So watching her freak out is in itself a little terrifying. And she wrote a post about a week ago, talking about being on the phone with her insurance, and she had sent them all of these things that they magically all of a sudden had no record of, and she just sent a single post saying, we should be able to do better than this. She's a 40-year-old woman with a 3-year-old child and a husband sick with cancer, and you're like, really? Like, this is what I get. I get put on hold for 45 minutes and then hung up on because they don't have a record of the paperwork that I sent 3 times. And that's like, this is the world we're living in. It's insane. Yeah. It's insane that we're not able to take care of each other. And I don't have a clever way to end that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you. Have a good night.
And my book is for sale in the lobby.
I don't know. I mean, the only thing that I think of is sometimes I see people bitching on Facebook about folks putting out fundraisers for their own projects, whether it's for health insurance, health needs, or art projects, or whatever. And, what was that? Egg salad. Well, I'm thinking more of
that was potato salad.
Yeah, potato salad. I'm thinking more of the individual ones you see rather than like the big crazy. But honestly, if you don't like it, don't fund it.
Yeah. I mean, that's like, here's the thing that I'm saying, and here's where I'm going to get myself in trouble. And we've been like, been talking about all of the weird, internet kerfuffles and political issues of the moment. And I mean, everyone talks about wanting to live in a, in a culture where we feel safe, where there is consent, where there's communication, where there's safety, where we feel like we can trust one another, and we can live well. And I do see a double standard, because you really should be able to ask. And no is fine.
No is awesome.
No
That's
is
how you
great.
know where your walls are.
But I feel like there is a scariness in political correctness where shaming the asker is not a good idea, because it fucks up the ecosystem. I think it's more important to focus on like our empowerment to say no. Like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to fund this, I don't want to help you, I don't want to have sex with you. Like, whatever that is, like, I feel like that's a stronger way to look at the world. You're not allowed to ask me that. Well, it's like, actually, no, anyone can ask you to have sex, to fund their crowdfund, to, whatever it is. And I feel like we will build a stronger society if the onus is on the personal decision of where you want to put your time and energy, not how safe society, is making you. And these things are really kind of complicated and weird because nobody wants to feel put upon constantly either. But I do feel like we're veering into a dangerous territory where we are punishing the asker sometimes, and that's not necessarily good.
And the asker has to be okay with no. You can't ask assuming that your ask is really a tell. You know, it has to be in both directions.
Yes, well, and as I say in the book, if you're asking and you're not graciously able to accept no as an answer for what you're asking, whether it's money or sex or a raise or whatever, then you're not actually asking, you're demanding,
Right.
or you're begging, and neither of those feel good. And you know, there's so much of this like happening right now because there's so much discussion about rape culture and about crowdfunding and about, you know, what is and isn't okay. And the, you know, just to bring up, we were talking about this a couple days ago. There was an article in the New York Times about colleges that are putting up billboards saying, you know, ladies, if you're having sex and you're under the influence, it doesn't matter whether you said yes. It's still rape. And I was like, well, then I've been raped thousands and thousands and thousands of times. Oh boy. And I get that that's coming from a place of wanting to help. But God, is it disempowering to the women who are reading that, which is like, you really are like, you know, you really are able to make your own decisions, and we trust you to make your own decisions. And it's frightening to think that we might be going backwards.
Definitely. That one was so strange. It felt like so well intended. Because there are huge issues. I mean, we hear about it all the time on campuses with sexual assault and with sexual assault specifically linked to substance abuse, especially alcohol. So there's a conversation really worthwhile having in what they were going for. But I mean, it's not in the shape of a poster. It's really hard it's more nuanced than that. It's more complicated. There's multiple people involved in these exchanges every time, and you can't say it in 4 words like that. It just doesn't work.
Well, you know, and I mean, to make it so black and white is just insane. Sure. And this is the conversation we were having the other night, is like the hardest thing about all of this when it comes to crowdfunding and, you know, someone asking their community for help with knee surgery or whatever it is, it's that it's kind of fundamentally messy. And people do not like messy.
Nope.
And, you know, the tools of the internet and crowdfunding and doing all of these kind of like community-based weird sort of things where favors are swapped and, you know, someone is helping you. And it is sort of that thing where, like, if you're good at gratitude, you know, I'm sure all of those people who helped you probably wanted some form of acknowledgement.
They got it, for sure.
Right. And that's, you know, it's kind of like that's its own skill.
Right.
To acknowledge the hundreds of people who gave the $3 or the $1,000.
In contrast to that story you told the other night about the Kickstarter with the dude who raised all the money and then didn't talk to the crowd for 2 years, and then in an interview told them that he had given all the money to charity. Which one? That was
That's
a
weird.
bad idea. If any of you are thinking of doing a Kickstarter, don't do that. I mean, and it's the communication and the gratitude, even if you're not going to be able to necessarily always come through to the degree that you hope to, if you communicate and you show gratitude and recognizing that people have been generous, and not that you owe them like a tit for tat, but that there are 2 people involved in this exchange. If you got something and you said you were going to do a thing, you might not always be able to come through, but you at least talk about it and acknowledge your accountability in it.
Well, and in this sense, crowdfunding is like any human relationship. Whereas, you know, it's when things get messy, or you're going to be late, or you're going to come, you know, you're going to come in a little short, so much is forgivable if you communicate.
Right. And,
you know, it is such an incredible mirror, the crowdfunding mirror and the one-on-one, you know, lover relationship mirror. Yeah. It all, so much is forgivable if you just say, oh my God, I'm going to be late, but I'm here and I'm coming. Oh. You know what I mean. Moving right along. I think we'll take questions from the audience in a second, but we should talk about what happened to us in Portland.
I was about to say, we have to do that.
You tell.
So I read this article like 6 months ago, but somehow magically somebody posted it yesterday, and it was the first time that Amanda saw it about this.
2 days ago.
Oh, right, yes. Yeah.
So
Touring.
So we landed in Portland, and I'm like in the cab checking my phone.
And there's an article floating through the Twitter sphere about a woman who's a professional cuddler, and how she started this business, and within no time was getting like tens of thousands of emails, and she is booked solid, and it's totally platonic. It's non-sexual. It's about connection and touch and being seen and being held, and it's like $60 an hour, and it's so sweet. And it turns out she's in Portland.
And we were in Portland.
Yeah. Yeah. And so Amanda, being the Twitter-savvy Twitterer that she is, she asked and found out how to find her and got in contact with her within like an hour. And on our way to the gig, we got to visit her offices and got a 3-person spooning cuddle time in.
And it turns out she had written a book about touch, and I gave her my book about asking. She had never heard of me, which I love. Like, all these people bombed her and were like, Amanda Palmer's trying to find you, and she was like, oh, that fucking okay. She can come to my cuddle palace though.
Yeah.
And but she was completely just like this. Like incredibly open person, and Whitney and I show up, and she's got a client leaving.
Yeah.
And I explained I had to write an article for The Guardian late last night, like 600-word article on it was past deadline, and I was like, I just have to write about the cuddle girl, and I explained the guy leaving, clearly like straighty business dude leaving the cuddle palace, which is actually just like a little storefront in East Portland. I explained him as, God, what did I say? With the happiness yet awkwardness of a husband who's in a lingerie department while his wife tries on a sexy bra. Like, he was really happy, but he was like, here we are in the cuddle place. I just got cuddled. See ya. And we invited her to the show, but she couldn't come because she had to go do an out call to another businessman in Beaverton, Oregon. And
You can't make that shit up. It's great.
but she just welcomed us in.
Totally.
And I had so many questions for the woman who runs the cuddle business.
Yeah.
And the first question, which has been a lot of people's question, is like, what do you do if someone pokes you with their boner?
It's a reasonable question.
And she says it actually doesn't happen a lot.
She's got a great intake form and like really clear boundaries, and everything about her business makes really clear that this is about like safety and connection and feeling seen. And everybody likes to be the little spoon sometimes, so.
So I posted this to Facebook. I got the most wonderful comment on Facebook. This guy wrote in, and he was like, I'm 6'9" and I never get to be the little spoon.
I know, come here. I'll try. You get the bottom and I'll get the top.
He needs 2 people.
Yeah. My friend calls being a shorter big spoon jetpacking.
But I sort of like my article for The Guardian was kind of jokey. It'll be out in a couple of days and I'll share it. But I was like, we laugh and stuff, but this girl is working
Like 10-hour days, 6-7 days a week right now.
and her phone is ringing off the hook, and she's trying to train 3 of her friends in cuddling etiquette because there's too much business. And I think about this, and I think about what I just saw happen with Marina Abramovich's Artist is Present exhibition that she did at MoMA in New York, where thousands upon thousands of New Yorkers queued up for 10 hours to just sit in a chair and gaze into someone's eyes who was totally present and willing to sit there for as long as they wanted and see them. And, you know, and also Whitney brought up, I was writing this article on the plane and I was like, Whitney, what's a negative example of this shit happening? And, she brought up
Santa Barbara shooting.
Right, the shooting in Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
And I remember watching that video of the kid in the car who had just, who was getting ready to go shoot all of these people, saying, basically, you know, pull the curtain back and distill it down to its essence. No one sees me, and no one wants to touch me. And it's like, again, you know, these things aren't unrelated. Like, we're not seeing each other. And we're all so busy, and we all have phones, and we all have 8 million social networks and Facebook friends, but like how much are we actually encountering each other?
And we're not allowed to ask to be seen. The article, I read it ages ago, so I didn't reread it when you posted it, and I sent it to a couple friends, and I heard from multiples that the thing that they noticed most were all the comments that were basically making fun of people that would go to a business like that. And it just infuriated me.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like I've been doing body for 12 years. Has it really been that long?
You know what I loved was I loved your offhanded comment of, I'm a body worker, so I don't have health insurance.
Yeah. It's really sad.
Classy.
I worked in a hospital doing body work and still didn't have health insurance. It's really sad. Yay, being a contractor. But like, people come to body work for such a variety of reasons. A lot of my clients come for injury work, but just as often I've had people who come because they don't really have a lot of physical contact in their life, and they don't have people who just talk to them. And so they'll spend the entire time on the table telling me about their day and asking me about mine, and it's because, you know, they work from home or they're retired and they just don't have contact with other human beings that feels caring and not complicated by, you know, sexual intent, but still like physically connected. People don't get touched enough. And they're not, men especially, are not allowed to want touch that isn't sexual. They're supposed to want to fuck. And if they don't want to fuck, but they want to be touched, there's something wrong with them. So the men who want to go to see this cuddle lady are shamed for it. And that just fucking infuriates me. Everybody should get cuddled whenever they want.
So I've been on my one woman soapbox, standing in front of Whitney, going like, "You have to start a cuddle business in the Bay Area." Yeah, so if Whitney starts a cuddle business in the Bay Area, please refer her. I was also thinking, what an amazing combination package to get an hour-long massage and then a half-hour cuddle. Or even better, she could pair up with a fantastic therapist, and you could have an hour of therapy, and then get cuddled while you cry and weep. Anyway, please come see Diane von Furstenberg here tomorrow with a new fashion. Is there anything else that we want to talk about before we take questions? I think this is a good time to take questions. So we have 2 mics in the audience, and if you have a question, just raise your hand, and someone will bring a mic to you, more or less. Over here.
Do you ever plan on re-releasing your tarot deck?
That's a good question. So I had a wonderful group of fans kind of collectivize and create a beautiful artistic tarot deck using Kickstarter, and I helped them, but I didn't organize it. Yeah, I think if the demand is high enough, I mean, if enough people ask for it, I'd happily print it and take it on tour. It's a beautiful deck. Every card is by a different artist. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Really pretty.
Yeah. I've been busy writing a book. Yeah, go for it.
I was wondering if we could all have a cuddle cuddle.
There's a lot of people
The
in
question,
here.
I think the mic is off, but the question was, can we all have a cuddle puddle? And the answer is, you're about to get a surprise, but wait a minute. Oh.
Intriguing.
Don't be scared. You speak as if I can't hear you. You're 10 feet from my head.
Amanda, I guess many people get to know you or about you each day now. Has it influenced how you connect to new people that you encounter in your life? Do you find it easier, more difficult, or just the same?
That's a good question. I think it's changed. I mean, when I was first starting out in the Dresden Dolls, and it was like, okay, does this person know my music? If they do, I'll treat them a certain way. If they don't, it's different. What's interesting is that it's sort of like there's two things that have been happening. One is I've become more known, and that's like one factor. And then the other factor is I've become more comfortable. And those two things aren't unrelated, right? I'm also, I've gotten older, and I'm 38. I'm not the way I was when I was 26. But I've found it's like kind of a fantastic two-way street, because the more comfortable people are with me, the more comfortable I am with them. And it's one of the things that I love about not just having done all my years and years and years and years of touring with the Dresden Dolls and like hugging my fans and listening to people's stories and connecting with them through music, whether it was my music or their music or whatever. But now that I've done the TED Talk about that and explained that, people who have no idea what kind of music I make, and they've never heard the Dresden Dolls, they've never heard my songs, they don't know if I can play piano, they're not part of that world, but they saw the TED Talk and something resonated. And it's something, the artist in me, the songwriter, hates that. Because I don't want to be, there's this part of me that doesn't want to be acknowledged and celebrated and congratulated for just being social and good at talking. I want to be acknowledged and loved because I can write a fucking song. Because that, right?
You can.
So that feels like a much higher honor. But what's actually interesting is, like, if you pull back and take the wider perspective, they're two different talents. I know a lot of like amazing songwriters who can't fucking talk to people. I mean, it really is. It's a two-sided talent to write a great fucking song about your feelings, but also hold someone's hand and say, yes, thank you for coming and thank you for understanding, and I fucking love you too, and you're rape and like whatever. Like that's its own job to really to do step two, and be able to encounter your fellow man having like purged yourself. And so, I sort of, like, my life is really weird. Like, I did lots and lots of touring, I've written lots of music, I've done a million projects, and then TED came calling, and then immediately a book came calling. And I could have said no to all of those things. I could have just kept, I could have just stayed on stage and played music and said, that's not for me, that's not my job, that's not what I do, that's beside the point. But I feel like part of my life's work is understanding, that isn't beside the point. That is the point. Like, I got into music and wanted to write songs because I desperately wanted to connect with people. And there's a wide playing field. And it might be a song, and it might be a friendship, and it might be a book, and it might be a TED Talk. But there's a lot of ways of doing this, and they might not be as different as we think. Yeah.
This thing on?
Woo!
Hi.
Hi.
I know you talked a lot about how hard it is to ask for money and to need things to survive, but other than that, what is the hardest thing to be shameless about?
Wow. You first.
You first. Well, okay, that's a great question. I'd love to speak to just the semiotics and the language around that. Here's an interesting thought. And I have taken on a lot of criticism, like a lot, and a lot of abuse. And one of the things that is leveled at me, the donuts are still going, by the way. I have this image. Has anybody here read Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? Oh, yeah. Do you know that amazing passage in the beginning of the book where Charlie just takes a teeny millimeter of chocolate and puts? I'm imagining that's what's happening with the donuts.
Yeah. Good job sharing.
Yes, good job sharing.
You guys
That's
passed
amazing.
kindergarten like, whoa, that's great.
So I started deliberating on this during the writing of the book. I get attacked constantly, and one of the things that I am called, besides I should show you guys. I did a photo shoot before.
That's relevant.
Before this show, I did a photo shoot. Long story, but it'll come out and you'll see it. I'm wearing almost as tattoos what I am not. And my statement for the photo shoot was basically that I'm not my fragile ego, and I'm not the sum of my haters' summary. So I have narcissist, talentless cunt, attention whore written on my arms. Hooray! But one of the things I easily could have added to my arms is shameless, right. And especially with the Kickstarter, and a lot of other things, like Amanda Palmer is disgusting. She's shameless, and I was like, I thought shame was supposed to be bad. So if I'm shameless, isn't that good? And what an interesting way of looking at it, that we live in a culture where if you flip it, it's good to have shame. Right. It's good to feel shame. Yeah. And it's that's not helping us, guys. Yeah. It's really not in so many ways. And I'm going to pass that over to you because I think you could probably speak to the question. And then
it's interesting because as much as I think that's true, the first thought that came to mind is actually is shame. Like admitting the shames that you do have is probably the hardest thing to go ahead and just be very public about. Because people, inevitably, they do have it. You carry these things, we all do, and you're not supposed to be that human and that vulnerable. You're not supposed to admit that you doubt yourself and that you don't like yourself all the time and that you question your own motives or you question your own habits or your own skills, and you're supposed to somehow not be shameless but not admit your shame. Good luck with that.
Yeah. No, that's kind of the two, that's the weird sort of double-edged sword of society today. And I drew a lot of inspiration from my book, from Brene Brown's book, Daring Greatly. And I don't know if you guys have read it, but she wrote the introduction for my book. And it's really, and I just quoted it in that passage that I read from the Bible dip. It's insane in a culture so advanced and so technologically advanced that we are so emotionally behind. It's crazy.
I feel like we get further behind sometimes as we get more invested in our technological advances. We get further from our human connections and our ability to, we have ways to avoid having to develop our emotional skills because we'll fall back on all of our fancy tools.
Yeah, absolutely. And the funny and the irony is that those tools can be palliative, can actually emotionally connect us, but a lot of the times they aren't.
Yeah, they're tools. It's how you use them. You know.
Right. So let's take one more question. Wherever.
Thank you.
Great.
There.
Hi.
Hello, I don't think this thing's on at all, but I'll.
Oh no.
No, it's on.
Oh,
Use
all right,
it.
Great.
Yeah, use it.
Closer.
Yeah, closer to your mouth.
Hey there.
Yeah.
Perfect. So this is a two-parter. So the first thing is, I've read that the reason that you don't get your eyebrows tattooed is because you don't like the sensation of pain, of physical pain. Right? So. Right. Totally. However, your music is kind of riddled with like the emotional pain that becomes very physical. So it feels to me like tattoos are something you could probably handle. You know what I'm saying? But you know, whatever. Your own choice. The second part is, will you please play the ukulele anthem? That's.
Wow. Well, okay, number one, that's a myth. The reason that my eyebrows aren't tattooed, and they're not tattooed, I paint them on with liquid eyeliner. It has nothing to do with pain. My physical pain threshold is actually incredibly high. My fear is not of pain, my fear is of commitment. And I don't have any tattoos for that reason. I have nothing against tattoos. I think they're fantastic, and some of the most beautiful artwork of this century that I have seen has been incredible, body artwork. But I have yet to find something that I am not afraid of committing to stick on my body, because I've just watched myself change so much. To the point where, and I'm generally not a type A personality, I'm a pretty crazy, impulsive person, but when I was 22, I designed a tattoo, and like a really beautiful tattoo. It was the logo of my favorite band, which was gorgeous, and the my Scottish family clan motto, which is Latin, and I studied Latin, and I had Anthony, my mentor, and my stepfather, and my biological father all write one word of the motto, which was 3 words, so it was like riddled with meaning. And I had my boyfriend of the time design it, and I pinned it up next to my desk and said, if I still want this fucker in 5 years, I'll get it. And then when I was 26, I was like, It's still beautiful. I carry it. My Scottish family clan motto is so fucking perfect for me. It's my Scottish clan is McKinnon. That's my middle name, along with Gaiman. And the Scottish the motto is Audentes Fortuna Juvat, which is basically translates to fortune aids the daring. And I don't need it on my skin. I have it in here. I live it. And I've recently considered a tattoo that I might get, and I'll let you know.
My relationship to tattoos has a similar flavor, only I do have a couple, but they've all been for memorial tattoos of folks who pass, in that sense that I could pretty much guarantee that wasn't ever going to change. And I've thought, I'm pretty sure,
Right.
And I've thought of others that aren't in that vein, and none of them have ever successfully made it onto my body. At this point, all of my tattoos are memorial tattoos, because I'm like, that's gonna stick. That's not changing anytime soon.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful way of keeping somebody with you. I want to do something kind of weird tonight. So, and now is a good time to do it. So And I have to do a giant book signing tonight, and this show has gone on for fucking 2 hours. And I knew that once I brought Whitney up here, this was not going to be a short exercise.
I was really nervous to sit in front of you guys and talk. Thanks for making it not that bad.
Let's talk about Midtown Social. Whitney is actually in an amazing local band, Midtown Social, and she has a show coming up, so
Yeah.
she should plug it.
We have a show next Saturday at the Chapel. We're playing with Afrolicious. We have a horn section, good harmonies, great rhythms. We do a lot of dance music. People really get the fuck down at our shows, and it makes me really happy. And you all should come. I actually have some flyers for the show that I'm going to put on your signing table, if that's okay.
Yeah, totally.
And you can find us on Twitter and on Facebook and SoundCloud, and our website is midtimesocialband.com. And I think my drummer's here somewhere, and I'm going to hug the hell out of him for coming. Thank you. And that's all I can think to say. Oh, and we have a music video. We have our first EP and our first music video that we put out this summer, and I'm really proud of it. So
Yeah.
And
I will, I'll share all of that on Twitter and Facebook to remind you guys.
Thank you.
And I know that Whitney is really, really talented, and I've done that for a long time. But I went and saw the band it was the Rickshaw, right?
Yeah, I'd just joined. It was super new
Yes,
for
and
me.
one of the things I loved about it is that they are like a funk dance band. They are not the sort of thing I would randomly drop in on, but they were amazing.
Yay.
And it was incredible, like celebratory, crazy joy dance band, and I loved it.
As much as I love singing Delilah, and I love singing Delilah, having people dance when you're singing feels really fucking
special.
good. It's just so good. So.
But having people cry when you're singing
Feels differently good.
Speaking of which,
So
I've never done this before, but I'm gonna do it, and this is actually a really good place to try it because this is a beautiful venue and you're all sitting down, and you asked for a cuddle puddle. I'm not gonna make you guys do that. You can try in your own area, within your small zip code.
Consensually.
What I'm gonna do right now is, and I only got the idea at like 5 o'clock, is I've been thinking a lot about Zoe, and Zoe and I have been connected as friends for a long time. We toured together a lot. We've recorded together. She's played on my albums. We've just been following each other's lives for a long time. And this night was going to be a real, incredibly important connection, because she was following what I was going through with Anthony and his cancer. And when Jeff got cancer, she reached out to me, and I was like, oh my God, I'm over here. I know the weirdness of what you're about to go through. And we've been, and that connected us. And we started texting a lot more, and Neil and I went to visit them. They live they live more than an hour's drive outside of San Francisco. And I wrote a song about 2 years ago, and without getting too long-winded, I wrote this book, which uses Anthony and his cancer as like a huge theme in the book, when there was a happy ending. Because he was in remission when I wrote the book, and I went off to Australia, and I said goodbye to Neil, and it was all wonderful, and I went off to write my book, and everything was fine, and my friend was better. And then as soon as I landed on my fucking birthday, the cancer came back as I was going into the deep editing of the book, and it was like, life just doesn't stop happening, right? And I've been watching this with Zoe. It's like she's dealing with feeding her kid and getting the housework done and dealing with the insurance company and dealing with the internet haters, and life doesn't stop happening. And I wrote a song when I was in Boston dealing with like Kickstarter hate, and I wrote a poem for the Boston bomber, and everyone hated that, and I was just like, I was crushed by life, and hadn't written a song in a while, and finally wrote something, and wanted to record it so that I could release it now, like this month or next month. I was looking to finally release music after the book tour was over, and I was like, I need Zoe to play cello on this song because nobody else can. And we were gonna play the song for you tonight. I know. But we made a recording of it. I recorded it, about a month ago in Boston, and she recorded cello on it. And it's a song that I wanted to release next month, and I'm still going to. But I want to play it for you guys tonight because she's not here. So if you will indulge us, imagine that Zoe is here. She just recorded these cello parts from her house where she's built herself a cello studio that she is in love with, which is amazing.
I think it's the cello cave.
She calls it the cello cave. Yeah. And it's just ukulele and voice and cello. And we were going to play it here on stage tonight, but because I have this rough recording that isn't even mastered yet, that I was going to put out, and please don't record this because I really want to finish it before people hear it. But what I wanted to do right now was just turn off the lights and listen to it, and maybe hold the hand of the person next to you consensually. But also, while we listen to it, think about Zoe, who is probably at this very moment driving Jeff back from the hospital and going and feeding her kid and going to bed. And think about Anthony, who is just getting back from the hospital today, getting brain chemo because they just found cancer in his brain. And
I'm sure you have plenty of people in your own lives to think about this as well.
And so, take this moment. And we found this acoustic tile today. So we came into the venue. I'm gonna take this out to Book Signing Land, and if you guys wanna write a message to Zoe on the back of this acoustic tile, we're gonna have a bunch of Sharpies, and Whitney will get it to her. And she wanted so badly to be here. And we tried, I was like, is there a way we can make it happen? And she just, she needed to do what she needed to do, and she needed to abide by Jeff. Yeah. So if you could all just sign it, whatever, tell her that you love her, put a heart, do whatever you need to do, we'll get it to her, and that would be amazing. And let's kill the lights, and let's play the song.